Hello, Mr. Ferguson here. Today we're going to have a look at the written methods for addition, and we're going to actually look at both at the same time, and I'm going to put them up side by side, which is a nice way to sort of compare. You're going to do the same calculation just with two different methods, and it's nice to see the benefits and pitfalls of both of them. And what we normally do is we start off by teaching the children the expanded method, and then we move on to the compact method, and by the end of year 4 we'd expect that most of them have picked up the compact method. The expanded method is really good because it helps understand what's really going on in each column, because we have a process of partitioning when we lay it out. So that's our sort of key language, is partitioning the numbers, lining up in the right column with our ones, tens and hundreds, and then we will be doing a bit of carrying when we bridge the 10. But like we always do with our written methods, it's a really good idea first of all to start with our columns, so we line things up correctly. So over here we're going to have our hundreds, we're going to have our tens and our ones, and sometimes I get the children to just put some lines under there just so they can see there's 3 columns for the hundreds, 2 for the tens and 1 for the ones column. And that's another thing that parents sometimes say. They learned that it was called a unit, and we used to call them units, and we're starting to go more towards ones just because it's the number 1, 10, 100, so it kind of makes a bit more sense. But you might still use that word unit, but it's a good habit to get in to call them ones. The one mistake sometimes children make is that they don't leave the gap between the hundreds and the tens, so it becomes cramped. It's a good thing to leave that gap between those. And then the next thing we need to do is to partition the number. So in 264 we've got 200s, and so we're partitioning it, which means kind of split it into its parts. 200, and we've got 60 in the tens, and then a 4 in our ones. And I'm going to put my little add symbol there just to remind myself I'm adding, and then below that I'm going to partition 694. A good way to do this with the children is to say the number out loud. 694. So 690 and a 4. And now what we'll do is we'll create our little equal sign. And so now I can start adding. Before that, I'm just going to lay out my compact method. So we're going to do this sort of at the same time. And it's okay to teach children both ways. They still get the right answer. Some of them like to do both. They can check with one or the other. But it's nice to have that discussion. And some children choose one or they choose the other. And actually, it's either way is absolutely fine. I would say the expanded method just takes a little bit longer to lay it out. The compact method, we literally just write the numbers down, and when we do our columns, oops, pardon me, when we write our columns down, hundreds, tens, ones, they're now nice and compact together. Our hundreds, our tens and our ones are all next to each other. So now underneath each one I'm going to put my 2, 6, 4, and then underneath that, lining them up nicely, 694, and I'm lining up my columns. I'm lining my ones up with my ones, my tens up with my tens, my hundreds with my hundreds, and then a nice equal sign there, and we can start adding. So the one thing we need to do this time is always start on the ones column. Children, because we read left to right, sometimes like to start with the hundreds, but when we get to carrying we can see why we shouldn't really do that when we're using this method. In our ones column, 4 and 4, to support children as a bit of a scaffold, you can start them with a ruler as a number line. We've got rulers around the school, we've got rulers at home, so it's a really useful tool as a number line. Start with 4, and we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, gets us to 8. So we put our 8 in there, and then on this side, put it in there. No carries, nice and straightforward. When we get to the next column, we've got a 6 and a 9, and what we've got here, when we do 60 and 90, or a 6 and a 9, we can see that because we know our number bonds, we know that's going to bridge into the next 100. So we're adding a 9 and a 6, and if I use my number line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I know that's going to be 15. Now the compact method, I'm just adding a 9 and a 6. Whereas with the expanded method, the children see that we are adding a 60 and a 90, because in this one, the 6 and the 9 represent what we see in the expanded method. So for that reason, that's why the expanded method helps us to understand what's going on with the compact method, that those digits are representing something different. But what we need to do is say, well, if we've done 9 and 6 is 15, if we know 9 and 6 is 15, then we know that 90 and 60 will give us 150. And I'll say to children, well, you've got 150, where should your 100 go? What column does it belong into? Okay, it belongs in the hundreds column. And what I might do is I might put it in here and say, okay, it will go in there. And if you look at it, well, I'll say, what's wrong with that? Why would that not work? It's not going to fit because we've got some more hundreds we need to add up when we get to that column. So what we need to do is carry it below, carry it underneath. Put my line back on there again. Yeah, we want to carry it, so we put our 100 underneath and then we're left with our 50. And what's going to happen with our compact method, we're doing 9 add 6, with 15 we put our 5 there and we carry a little 1 down in the next column. So now we can start thinking about our hundreds. Our 100 is going to be 200 add 600, and what I normally do with the children, see if they can spot this mistake, is I'll put it there. And we'll say, well, what have we forgotten to do? What have we missed? This is a mistake that's really, really common. We forget to add that carry on. And what you can do, if they do make that mistake, I'd encourage them to get their green pen, cross that out, and change it to a 9. And say, okay, we've added that, and that helps them to reflect, it helps them to see, and hopefully they won't make that mistake again. And then the same applies over here, but this time we're just doing 2 and 6. We say to them that 2 and that 6 represent a 200 under 600. And again, we don't want to forget our little carry down there. Put it there. Now sometimes people say, well, do we put the carry at the top, up here, or at the bottom? And a general rule, a good practice is to put it at the bottom. And the reason we do that, which we'll go on to in the next video, is because it can confuse them with exchanging. When we do subtraction, we do all our exchanging on the top, and it's good to get in a habit of putting all our carries on the bottom. Now I understand some children have taught other ways, and they're used to putting a carry on the top. And if they're really used to that and they don't want to get out of their habit, then I think that's okay. But it's a good practice to try and put that carry at the bottom. So I hope that's helped you see both the expanded method and the compact method addition at the same time. And again, what I normally do to check is we can then use the inverse. So 8 minus 4 here gives us 4, so we know that's correct. 15 take away 9 is 6, so that will be correct. And then 9 take away 6, including my carry, leaves us with 2. So hopefully that's a useful way of looking through the expanded method and the compact method for addition.